I want to ask you about this legislation, but I just want to get your reaction to the two very different viewpoints that we heard as you were waiting to come on tonight from Will Jawando and from Dr. Steele. What did you think about that?
Really fascinating conversation. I'll say this, I think Shelby Steele hit on two very important points. Racism is an issue, but racism is not the issue. If racism is the issue, then you are not the solution in your own life. I can tell you from a kid growing up in poverty, mired with hopelessness, that I lost my way. I almost flunked out of high school. I decided that the world was my problem and that I had no ability to change my future. I was dead wrong. A strong, powerful mother and a mentor taught me that anyone from anywhere at any time in this country can soar to heights never imagined by that individual. I embraced that concept and my life took a 180-degree turn in the right direction. So Shelby said it really well. So from an education perspective, if you're looking to bring our country closer together and close the racial divide, we have to have more parents saying enough is enough. The poorest zip codes should not be a correlation for the poorest educational outcomes. We have to have parents and citizens saying no more from an economic stability and economic mobility message. Opportunity zones will bring $75 billion into the most distressed communities in the country. That means we can create entrepreneurs in the places where there are no jobs. I became an entrepreneur. It changed my financial life and my mother's as well. So the truth is that racism is an issue. It is not the issue. Individual responsibility has to be embraced for the human flourishing to hit its maximum potential. I've experienced it, I know it, I've studied the issue, and the response continues around this country, whether it's Ben Carson, Jason Halliburton. There are so many examples around this nation of people who've decided that enough is enough, I must be responsible, and as a responsible American, I'm going to do the hard work, even if it's a little harder, and I will get amazing results. And I will say, this country stands strong. It is the most powerful, optimistic nation on earth.
Yeah, well, that's a good message. I feel like we have to get back there. And I know that you're trying to absolutely lead the way right now on this legislation that would go a long way in police reform. You heard from Senator Schumer. It looks like Senate Democrats are not lined up with you on this. So what kind of change can we expect to come out of the Senate in this bill?
Well, we have an amazing opportunity to say to the American people, we hear you. The police unions are perhaps a part of the problem on the left. They say that there are poison pills that they're not willing to discuss, and there are other things that they want in the legislation, when in fact 75% of the legislative priorities in my legislation, the Senate legislation, and the House legislation all line up to be the exact same thing. Will the Senate Democrats not come to the table and negotiate when you have 3 out of the 4 items you want? If they are more interested in having the issue than the solution, that tells me that partisan politics and November is more important than solving the issues. I hope that when we have a chance to roll this out, that Democrats of goodwill will come to the table and negotiate for the type of results this nation wants.
Well, what a great point. I mean, I think that people are so torn and frayed by what's going on in this country right now. And when they look at the intransigence that we're hearing on Capitol Hill over some of these issues that seem like they should be solvable, this is Nancy Pelosi talking about it. And then I want to get your response to her if I could, sir.
For the leader of the Senate to say it's going nowhere, we don't want any of that, is really disgraceful. We all know that we need to have guidelines, we need to have training, we need to have database, we need all of those things. But we also need to have some serious legislation to make sure it happens nationally.
So where are the areas of agreement? Can you get there? And can you get there before the July 4th recess?
Well, Martha, what I just heard from Speaker Pelosi, God bless her, but part of the things that she said that I agree with is the fact that our bill deals with data collection and more information so that we know what's going on in agencies around the country. With good information, it leads to the second tranche, which is training, training, and training. We can actually provide training on de-escalation. We can talk about the necessity to intervene. We have the resources pointing in the right direction when you have the right data. So we agree on both of those tranches. Officer misconduct, we're in the same place. We want to eliminate the bad apples. What they want to do is go so far that they introduce poison pills in their legislation, and that's why Mitch McConnell said it's a non-starter for those poison pills. We could have talked about decertification of officers, except for the Democrats say that's a poison pill because the police unions say that's a non-starter. So they're not willing to have that conversation. So we didn't put that part in the bill. So what we have is 75% of what they say they want. We can start there. If she's not willing to come to the table, if Schumer's not willing to come to the table, I hope the American voters come to the table and say enough is enough.
Well, you know, you look at the police officer in Minneapolis now fired, and the other one now fired in Atlanta who had things on their record that should have shown up on a database like this. And, you know, the investigations will show perhaps that they shouldn't have been doing their jobs. We'll see where this goes. I think most Americans can be on the same page on that, and we'll see what can happen on Capitol Hill. Senator Scott, always good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for being here tonight. You too.